got my election hat on today.
Yeah.
I'm ready for anything. And all you have to remember is resist. It doesn't matter what you resist. Just resist everything and anything. It'll be fine. So today we're talking about Larry Coryell.
Yeah, we are.
One of my all-time favorite topics. My favorite jazz guitarist, bar none, and I've been studying him and basically following him for decades. So I think I've got most of the stuff he put out, but I thought I would give everyone a little context before we dig into the Coryell stuff.
Yeah.
He was born in Texas, but he actually at a pretty young age moved to Seattle. So he came out of Seattle in the 60s, which if you think about that, who else came out of Seattle in the 60s?
Hendrix? Who was no?
Yeah,
right.
He came from the basically the same town as Hendrix, which is interesting because there are some similarities. I mean, obviously there's a lot of differences too.
Yeah.
But he went to some small college there and then came out, and his first gig that he got right out of college was with the Chico Hamilton Quartet.
Right. Wow.
So this is his first record.
That's amazing.
So this is the first record that he was on, theoretically. I mean, there might be some other stuff floating around, but I mean, this is what they say started it all. So if you look at the back of this, there he is.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah, so
that's amazing.
So he did a couple of records with Chico Hamilton. There he is up in the corner. And this is the one, if you want to see where it all started. This is the one. And he was actually a pretty innovative guitarist right out of the gate, you know. This is a good record.
Yeah.
So then this was in 1966, and then in 67 he got another gig and joined Gary Burton's Quartet, and this was the first Gary Burton record that he was on. So if you look right down here, it's another early picture of him. So the Chico Hamilton was, you know, introducing Larry Coryell, and this is basically, by the time he got to Gary Burton, he was part of the quartet. So it was Gary Burton, Larry Coryell, Roy Haynes, and Steve Swallow. Killer quartet.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit of context, you know, where he came from and what his first gigs were all about. And then after that, he joined a band, or I should say formed a band called the Free Spirits. And they did one kind of real album for a label and a couple of sort of semi-Buddhist kind of things, like a live thing, which I've never even seen. And I don't even have a real copy of that, because they go for hundreds of dollars.
Wow.
Years ago, a friend of mine worked at a radio station and they were getting rid of some stuff, and a friend of mine gave me a copy of the record, but it didn't have the cover. They had thrown away the cover, if you can believe this, and they typed up a cover, you know, that said the Free Spirits. So I got the record, but I don't have the cover. And in the Free Spirits was Bob Moses. You know who he is?
Yeah, oh yeah. He was on the Matheny record, or the early Bright Side's Life.
Yep.
Among other things. But
he was on the famous trio record with Jaco Pastorius and Pat Metheny. So then he went on, you know, he did a lot of other stuff too. He played with a lot of other people. So those guys were the founding members of the Free Spirits.
Sweet.
So you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first. But
Oh.
before you do that, I gotta say, if you like what we're doing, sorry, my hands are really close to the camera. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to our channel and maybe I don't know where I am on the screen, but like the video, show us some support. We're YouTubers.
Yeah, we
gotta
need
generate that.
subscribers really bad.
Yeah.
Like I think your mom probably subscribed like 8 times, right?
No, she didn't even know where to find it.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, so this is
we know at least that there's other people that aren't listening. Okay.
This is the very first Larry Coryell record right here. So, he was married to Julie Coryell, who is, I believe, the daughter of Carol Bruce, an actress.
Okay.
She wrote the liner notes, which is kind of weird.
Hmm.
But listen to the lineup. This lineup like carried through his career, and he did a lot of work with these guys. Bernard Purdy on drums, Albert Stinson on bass on some tracks, Ron Carter on bass on a couple of other tracks, but Chuck Rainey on bass. So this would have been like later on the Fairyland trio.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Those guys, and then Mike Mandel organ and Jim Pepper flute.
Oh, okay.
And I believe
wow.
Jim Pepper was in the Free Spirits as well.
Okay. Yeah, and he was also, I don't know, I think he played, I don't know if he played with Oregon, but I think he wrote, didn't he write Witchy Taito?
Yeah, he
Am I right about that?
he was in that group.
Yeah.
But he did some great stuff too. So this is Larry Coryell's first solo record. And I should have got the I think this came out in 69.
Okay.
I should have looked this up, but yeah, it's really gritty and kind of psychedelic, and he sings a little bit. I really like his vocals. He was one of the few jazz guys that sang, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, kind of psychedelic and really, really gritty and kind of distorted and fun stuff. So Coryell self-titled. That's
Sweet.
the first solo record.
That's a good one to start with. I didn't know he went back that far with Purdy and Rainey.
Yep.
I thought when I saw them on Fairyland, I thought maybe he was like, I want those Steely Dan guys on my record.
No, actually, they were playing with him long
Steely
before
Dan.
Steely Dan, got a hold of them.
That's really interesting. I'm going to go, I don't know how chronological this is. I want to start with, I'll start with this one. This one was one that really started grabbing me big time recently. Maybe the first or second Coryell record that I got, probably the second one. This is Barefoot Boy. And you got, who's on here? Steve Marcus playing soprano. Lawrence Killian, I don't know him, he's on congas. Roy Haynes, again, on drums. Harry Wilkinson on percussion. And then Mervyn Bronson on bass. And Mike Mandel on piano. So this was an interesting session. I think the bass player was late to the session, I think, which he also happened on another recording that he did with Elvin Jones, I think. And so he did like a guitar duo with Elvin Jones. But I think the bass player was late because the opening track, Gypsy Queen, doesn't have bass on it. It's just him going, playing some Led Zeppelin type riff and really going hard at it. And then he takes a solo. I don't know if it was overdubbed. It might have been overdubbed because there's two guitars. But he takes this just ridiculous solo. It's outrageous. It's it's probably my favorite solo that he did. With lots of feedback and really nasty blues stuff, and then he throws in some bebop shit, and then he got crazier into the feedback and the just gravelly, outrageous stuff. The second track,
that's the Hendrix influence, the feedbacky stuff.
Right. Although I think he was maybe doing it before or at the same time as Hendrix. I don't know if it was.
Same time.
Yeah, it was the same
Well,
time.
66 was when he did the Chico Hamilton thing.
Yeah.
So it would have been like the later part of the 60s before he really cut loose.
Yeah.
I don't know when this came out, probably also around 69, 70.
This one is 71, but I
Oh,
think
okay. So
uh,
that's a year after Hendrix died.
right. But Jack Grassel sent me the name of a record, like a Carla Bley record, which is from I think before the Hendrix records came out, and there's like a track where he only plays feedback pretty much. So it's I would say, I mean, I need to look up to it. I think he talks about it in his book. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, he plays some crazy shit on here. And Roy Haynes is so amazing on this record. He takes a great drum solo. I think on Call to the Higher Consciousness, the side 2 track. Maybe it's the first track. But I think Roy Haynes, he played with Bird, didn't he? He like goes way back. But he played with like literally everybody, and he could do like any style. Like he can play swinging. He can play kind of like the sparser, more detailed stuff with like Metheny. There's that great trio record with Dave Holland and Pat Metheny. And then here he like really goes nuts and plays some really rocking stuff. So I highly recommend this record. This one's really great.
And that's on Bob Thiel's Flying Dutchman label,
right.
which was a really interesting label. One of many of the Bob Thiel labels. He was sort of like the Creed Taylor of the early to mid 60s. Like he produced everyone, and he basically funded a lot of jazz that was going on.
Oh, nice.
At that time. So next one I'm going to show is The Restful Mind.
Hey, that's my
Larry
jam.
Coryell.
And who's on that record?
Ralph Towner, Colin Walcott, and Glenn Moore. So it's basically Oregon with Coryell. And that's kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like an Oregon record with Coryell playing guitar. Coryell's kind of the electric guy, and Towner's kind of the acoustic guy, although there's an absolutely gorgeous piece on the end of side 1, which I can't even read because it's got this weird font. But there's a solo acoustic piece on the end of side 1 that's just gorgeous.
This one?
Yeah. So is that Towner or is that Coryell?
No, that's Coryell. It's a
Coryell?
Ravel piece, yeah.
It's what I thought. I thought
Yeah.
it was Ravel, but it's one of the most gorgeous acoustic guitar pieces I've ever heard.
It's stunning.
It's
yeah.
just haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so like subdued for Coryell, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, he could do that. He could do that when he wanted to. He could turn that shit off and just like really play pretty.
Yeah, it's one of those pieces, man. It just melts you. You know, so this is a really interesting record, especially if you like Oregon and you like Ralph Towner, which we both do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So The Restless Mind.
There's another solo guitar piece on there. I think it might be called A Restless Mind, which isn't as delicate, but he's got like a bunch of cool harmonics and really.
Yeah. Well, you could tell that like later on when he got into his acoustic period, that was sort of the start of it.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
And he was one of the few guys that did the really over the top feedbacky Hendrixy fusion stuff, and he did acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
And for a long time, you know, a big part of his career in the 70s, that's all he did.
Right.
You know, he did all the albums with Steve Kahn and, you know, basically just solo acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
I went and saw him at Beck in the early days of Summerfest. he played at the Jazz Gallery in the afternoon,
Hmm.
and there was about 30 people there. I walked up and sat down in the front row and watched Coryell do a 2-hour set of acoustic stuff all by himself. No effects, no nothing. Just an Adamas 6-string, you know. It was amazing.
I think he's probably one of the few jazz guitar players who could do that. Definitely, probably. I don't think there's any other really fusion guitar players. Well, Phil Connors maybe is an exception, but even he, I mean, he did overdubs on his acoustic records. Like Coryell, man, I'll bring that up in
Well, the other thing is Coryell had a pretty large classical repertoire as well.
Huge, yeah.
So it wasn't just jazz; it was classical, and you know, he wrote a lot of stuff in that sort of solo acoustic vein.
Yeah.
I saw him another time at the Jazz Gallery in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
There was a room of like maybe 40 people, 50 tops.
Wow.
And he played with Michael Urbaniak, who's a European violinist.
Oh, wow.
And it was just him and a violinist, and it was amazing.
Wow.
Again, I was like right up close, like right front row, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, since we're on the topic of his solo guitar stuff, if you like solo guitar, and you like Larry Coryell's solo guitar, which I do immensely, this is a great record. It's called European Impressions, and I think it's I don't know if it's hard to find on vinyl. I've seen a couple copies of it. I know you have one in stock at the moment, but I can't find it on YouTube. I can't find it on iTunes. Like
that was a European pressing only. Yeah. That's why.
So yeah, the only way you're going to hear this is if you hear it on vinyl. And
it was on some small label that only existed for a short period of time, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's what's the label? Novus. So from Arista Records. So yeah, the whole set is all original compositions except for 2 Horace Silver tunes that he plays, which are Song for My Father and Sister Sadie. And it's really cool compositions. You know, he's got this thing where he can go from really classical sounding stuff to very bluesy sounding stuff to very folk sounding stuff to jazz. Sometimes all in one composition, and it kind of flows very naturally. And his solo guitar technique is just ridiculous. He's got like all these Lenny Bro harmonics that he does, and then he'll shred for a little bit, and then he'll get into some really, you know, heavy chord stuff. Really advanced harmonic stuff, especially. It's pretty impressive.
And major chops.
Yeah.
The guy had just chops, you know, like unlike nobody else at that time.
Yeah. So ignore the sticker. This was a DJ copy, I guess. So ignore that. European Impressions. If you can find it, you know where to find it. Ken's got at least one copy. So yeah, this is a cool one.
So I want to back up just a minute before we get too into the 70s acoustic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Live at the Village Gate, one of his greatest works. And he does some vocal stuff on here. There's a piece on side 2, Beyond These Chilling Winds, that just kills me. And his wife, Julie Coryell, sings with him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nothing else like it, man. It's just unbelievably just mystical, I guess is the best word for it. You know, it just takes you to a place that nothing else does, you know. And he does this ripping electric solo at the end of it. So it's like starts out as this kind of duet ballad kind of thing, you know, vocal thing, and then he just tears it up at the end.
Yeah.
So, the band on here is Marvin Bronson bass and Harry Wilkinson drums, which I think those guys were involved with the 11th House, right?
Let me check.
Look at the back of this. Total
It's a great
psychedelic.
back. Yeah.
So this is pretty readily available. I see this around. You know, it's not a ton of money. You can pick it up for $15.
Yeah.
But definitely one of the best fusion records ever.
I don't know. So I don't know if those guys were in 11th House because I don't.
Well, they appear on a lot of his stuff over the years.
Yeah. So I'll bring up 11th House while we're talking about it. This is I think their second record. I don't know if I've seen their first record lying around. This is the only one I've seen so far from that period.
Yeah, Alphonse Mouzon.
Yeah, right.
drums.
Yeah, so he's here. I think it's mostly the same lineup, except he had Randy Brecker, I think, on the first record, and this one is Michael Lawrence, who's also really great. And John Lee on bass guitar, Mike Mandel again on keyboards. And this is a very different, excuse me, a very different context than I think most of the other stuff we've been talking about so far, and I think a lot of the stuff we'll be talking about coming up, because a lot of the like live stuff and solo records are very like spontaneous and very raw and very you know, warts and all kind of stuff. Like he probably does like one or two takes and then they put it out. And this one is very tight. Like it's a very orchestrated record, which is really cool. He sounds like a superhero on this record when he's playing, because he gets these like great grooves going. They're just totally balls to the wall. You know, Alphonse Mouzon is like, he's comparable to Billy Cobham. I won't say he sounds like Billy Cobham, but he's comparable as far as like, you know,
He's kind of like the world beat version.
Yeah.
Of Billy Cobham. He's a lot more diverse.
Sure. Yeah. So this is this is just like
kind of
your face off.
Maybe almost like African influenced beats sometimes and stuff.
Sure.
Really complex.
Yeah. But it's like the big kind of like the stuff that Return to Forever did in their later years, but this for me is much more compelling, I think. I'm not sure why, but it's like the later Return to Forever stuff is a little bit, I don't want to say it's kind of silly. I don't disrespect Chick Corea like that, but this stuff really holds up well for me, at least. Here's the back.
Maybe the vocals on the Return to Forever were a little too weird.
I think they did have some, because the early stuff with Flora Purim, I absolutely love. I love her vocals on that. But later, I don't know, they just got so bombastic and
they got kind of commercial.
And commercial. And so this is a similar vibe. If you like that stuff, you will like this. But for me, like, I like this a lot better, I think.
This is much more kind of purist jazz.
Yeah. And there's some just amazing soloing. I have mine. Here we go.
So this one's called Tributaries.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that
with,
one.
With John Scofield and Joe Beck.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Joe Beck is kind of a more obscure guitarist. He played with the Gil Evans Orchestra.
Okay.
And, of course, everybody knows John Scofield. He went on to be a superstar later. But, really cool trio record in the spirit of the other trio, the McLaughlin, DiMeola, which Coryell originally.
Coryell was originally before DiMeola,
And then, of course, Paco de Lucia, joined after Coryell.
No. I think it was originally McLaughlin, Coryell, and Paco de Lucia.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't have any records by them. I don't even know if there are any. Are there?
With Coryell on it?
Yeah, with Coryell. I mean, I think there's
There
some
might
live
be one.
video
There are
stuff out
videos.
there,
Yeah.
but I don't
Maybe
know
this
that I've
record.
seen a record.
Hmm.
So this is great if you like, the sort of spirit of that trio. It's predominantly acoustic stuff, and all three guitarists are completely different players.
Yeah.
Coryell's the ripper.
Mhm.
I mean, he's definitely the fast kind of mega chops player.
Yeah.
So good record though.
I'd be interested to hear that because I've never heard Scofield play acoustic, and his technique is so like legato heavy. Like he doesn't pick a large percentage of the notes, which doesn't always
Well, he's all
translate that
about
well
the
to acoustic.
melody.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
he's probably a little more traditional on this than he was on his later period stuff, like
Okay.
with Medeski, Martin Wood, and all that stuff. That was
Yeah.
kind of all about. It's kind of a Bill Frisell kind of vibe. It's all
Interesting.
about melody.
Oh yeah. That dude plays bebop. As far as like modern guitar players go, I think he's got the bebop thing down
Who's
more
that?
than most. Scofield.
Scofield? Yeah, I saw him with a quartet once in Milwaukee, and man, he never came up for air.
No, right.
I mean, they introduced him. I'd like to introduce John Scofield from New York, and the band took off, and they never said another word for 2.5 hours. Man,
Yeah.
it was just deep dive.
Yeah. He's
Good show though. It was a sit down show too, which that they don't have a lot of those in Milwaukee. Where you can actually sit down and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
And man, what a band.
Yeah. I'll bring up another. I could go one or two ways on this.
I'm gonna add right away
Oh yeah.
that we're gonna do a part 2 of this.
Wait, I can't do a part 2. I'm bringing up all the records I got.
Really?
Should I
I thought we
save?
were
Should I
gonna
save
do
some?
part 2.
I can just withhold my last. How are we doing on time?
Well, do you have stuff with Coryell on it? Because there's so much of that.
I don't think so. No, I think I only have
Really?
his records.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that. I guess maybe we aren't doing a part 2.
I mean, I can just withhold the rest of what I was going to show.
Now keep going.
Okay.
I've got another 75 Coryell records here, so
Okay.
I'm good. But
You can ship them to my house. I'll talk about them for you.
we'll figure it out.
I'll keep going with the guitar oriented records. So this is a duo record with a Belgian guitarist named Phillip Catherine, and so he made quite a few of these records, these types of records. I think he probably made. I don't know if he made one with McLaughlin, but he at least toured, doing duo stuff with McLaughlin.
Steve
I think.
Kahn.
Steve Kahn. Like there's a lot of him doing duo stuff. There's a on the there's a streaming service called Quest TV that Quincy Jones put out, and there's a video of Coryell with John Abercrombie and this really amazing Brazilian musician. I can't remember her name, but she plays some guitar and she sings and some like more folkloric instruments.
I've seen that. That's pretty good.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's a really unusual group. So this is like one of many. He's very comfortable in this sort of duo or trio setting, and this doesn't, for me, like it doesn't jump out like some of the other ones do. But there's some really nice, great compositions on here. They're both kind of similar players, just in the very like aggressive acoustic style, very shreddy, but they can play melodies really well, and they know when to leave space. So this is a cool record. I think you also have a copy of this.
Yeah, that's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show one record from another band where he was kind of a side guy, but not really. I mean, young Django is obviously all about Larry Coryell. But this is a Stephane Grappelli piece. It's more swing oriented. And the band is Stephane Grappelli, violin, Phillip Catherine,
There it is,
guitar,
yeah.
Coryell, guitar, and Nels Henning Orsted Pedersen, bass. Killer quartet. So if you like Django Reinhardt, Stefan Grappelli stuff, this is really good because Coryell can play that stuff in a very masterful way as well. And of course, Phillip Catherine can too. And I believe it's all Django Reinhardt songs. Yes. There is one Phillip Catherine song and there is one Larry Coryell song. Other than that, everything else is Django Reinhardt, Stefan Grappelli. So, really cool swing thing. You can find this. This might be a little harder to find. It's on a really unusual label called, I think it's just called PA USA. So, you don't see it around that much anymore.
See, I'll bring up you brought up this record a few episodes ago, and you had me get this one early on. It's Fairyland. And
Yeah,
you got a cooler jacket. There we go. Yeah.
There's the first version. Yours is the second version.
Yeah. Although, I mean, let's be honest, this is a pretty sweet record cover too. It's just I don't know how much it has to do with the music, but it's a evocative image for sure.
And that's the one I originally got. That's the one that sort of turned me on to this period of stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, it might have been one of the first Coryell records I ever got.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. This is probably maybe like the fourth record I think you had me get. Also produced by Bob Thiel on Zodiac. And this is with Bernard Purdie and Chuck Rainey. Which I had always kind of assumed that he had just been like heard a Steely Dan record and been like, I got to get those guys. But it's interesting.
Steely Dan heard of his record.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure anyone who's watching who's a record fanatic knows that the Purdie and Rainey duo was kind of the iconic rhythm section of the later Steely Dan records. Kind of, I think, starting with Royal Scam. Maybe, and they would usually take up the bulk of the tracks, but there was always a couple other rhythm sections. So they play really well together, and this is like a very in contrast recording to like 11th House. This is like all kind of by the seat of the pants, whatever comes up kind of stuff.
Improvised trio record.
Very loose. They get themselves into all kinds of trouble. Like they stop at one point. And he goes,
well, he didn't stop. He didn't stop. It was like in between. He just kind of said, well, it didn't quite go the way we thought it was gonna, but that's
no. In that track, he sings and then they do a downbeat and he goes,
oh yeah,
and then
right.
They keep playing.
Yeah, but then he just tears it up.
And he rips it up, yeah.
You know? And so this is live at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 1970.
Yeah.
So this was done in front of a serious audience of jazz aficionados.
Yeah. Yeah, so
it must have just scared the hell out of most of those people at that point in time.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of like seeing Hendrix do a jazz set.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool because you can. It's like being at a concert where they probably just got off the bus. They maybe did like a quick sound check to make sure there was like sound coming out of the instruments, and then they started playing. So at first, you know, they find their bearings a little bit, and then within like 5 minutes, then they're just like off and soaring and making all sorts of ruckus. So this is it's a cool record for sure.
Yeah, and back in like 2005, I believe, or 2000. No, it must have been like 2007, 2008. I actually, I have a label as well, and the Spirit Tone label is actually the biggest. I think it's the biggest label in Wisconsin.
Wow.
We've got like 35 releases, 40 releases. I don't even know, but
A lot, yeah.
I had come up with an idea to do like a classic reissue, you know, part of the label, like a series. And I got a hold of Coryell's manager because this was the first pick. You know, I love this record, and nobody had ever put it out on CD. So I somehow got a hold of her, and she's like, well, why don't I just have Larry call you? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So like the next day I get a call from Larry Coryell, and he's like, hey, I'm Larry Coryell. How's it going? I'm like, you know, and so we had a good discussion, and basically I told him I wanted to put out the record, and he was all for it. He wanted to know if he was going to make some money.
Right.
And I said, of course, you know.
Yeah.
So basically it came down to Bob Thiel owned all this stuff, and Bob Thiel had died. And all the masters were in a warehouse somewhere, but nobody really knew where the master was for Fairyland. So basically they spent the better part of a year looking for it, and they never found it.
Wow.
So to make a long story short, we never put it out because basically we couldn't find a master. So at one point I got a sealed copy of it, and I made a master. We actually set up a rig in my living room where we could do a direct transfer, and it was pretty good, you know. But then, you know, one thing after another, and we couldn't get the rights to do it because Bob Thiel still owned it, but Bob Thiel was dead, and so it never happened. And then Larry Coryell died, and you know, so it was one of those projects that just never got off the ground. But that would have been cool.
It would have been cool.
So are you out of records?
I mean, I still have spaces. I think I ended up with 6 records.
I got one more.
Okay, yeah, you share one more, and I'll talk about spaces.
So I wanted to show this one. Larry Coryell and Emily Remler together. So Emily Remler was another really kind of interesting modern acoustic player, and probably I would say more of a classical player. I think she was one of his love interests. She died really young. And as far as I know, this is the only album they did together, and it's just both of them playing solo guitar.
Are they playing with each other, or are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all duets. So they do Arabian Nights by Larry Coryell. They do Joy Spring by Clifford Brown. They do Ill Wind by Harold Aryan. You know, there's a Coryell song on side 2 called 6 Beats, 6 Strings. And then they do a Joe Beam thing called How Insensitive.
Oh, that's
that Martino thing called Jerry's Blues. It's a really nice collection of songs. So look for this. Again, this is out there, and it's not that expensive.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that one. Yeah, the last one I'll talk about, I brought this up already, but I think for me, this is one of the essentials, I would say. This is Spaces. I think there's also another one with a cooler cover out on it too, but this is a nice, I did this once where I held my.
Let me see if I got the other cover. I might.
Keep talking. What do I say? This is dead air. All right. I'll play some music. I'll do another Coryell.
Classical.
Oh, never mind. I thought I had the other cover, but I got the same cover. So
Yeah. So Spaces. So this is on Vanguard, and it's a cool lineup. I don't know how deep into it I got when we talked about it. I think during probably one of our first episodes. But you have Coryell, you got McLaughlin on a couple tracks. Actually, on most of the tracks, I think. Chick Corea plays on, I think, the last track, and then Miroslav I never know how to pronounce his last name. Vitaus, who was, I think he did some stuff on ECM. Was he part of what their first Weather Report lineup? I think he was part of the first Weather Report lineup.
yeah, he was in Weather Report for like 2 records, maybe.
Yeah, he's
He's
really
got
great.
a couple of solo records too.
Yeah, and then so it's him and Billy Cobham. And for me, this record has a really unique vibe. It's kind of it's just very like adventurous and fresh, and like I just can't imagine that there was anything that had this kind of group sound leading up to it. I mean, it has a little bit, it's a little bit like, well, it has the energy of like the second Miles quintet a little bit, but not the sonic quality. Like it's very aggressive, you know what I mean? But the group, they really follow each other in every direction, and they really don't hold back from anything. So they get themselves into all kinds of trouble, like good trouble, you know, like, and really go nuts. So Spaces is the opening track. It's kind of got a ECM sort of sound for the melody, but then it gets more like funky and then swing. Renee's
That's on
theme,
Vanguard, right?
yeah. And Renee's theme, which is by Renee Thomas, I think is what it says, which is a acoustic duo with McLaughlin. That one's good. McLaughlin, I don't know if he got a chance to look at the charts before they recorded this, because he doesn't really sound like, he sounds like he's reading the changes for the first time on a couple of these. Glorious Step, which is really awesome, which is by Scott LaFaro, who is of the Bill Evans Trio. And Miroslav plays the melody with a bow. And then Wrong is Right, which is a tune he dedicated to, he doesn't say it on here, but in his autobiography he talks about, that was something that Monk would always say to him when they would run into each other in the clubs. He said Monk would always walk past and going, "Wrong is right, wrong is right, wrong is right."
In a heroin haze.
Well, I don't know. That was kind of his philosophy musically, you know. And so you can hear it in the piece. There's just a lot of like really disjointed things coming in and out, and it's a very I haven't transcribed it, but it's pretty outrageous. And then Chris and New Year's Day in Los Angeles. I think the last one has no. Chris is the one with Chick Corea on it, and it's very kind of psychedelic and slow and all these arpeggios and stuff. And then Chris is like a really it's like 20 seconds long. It's like a 20th century classical thing. He puts in all these weird voicings or exploratory voicings. So this is a cool record. You should check this record out if you haven't already. It's like
fairly
it's
easy
very
to
fresh.
find too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, keep an eye out for it. This is a great one.
All right, so I guess that's the Coryell show, huh?
Until I
You gotta
obtain
come
more.
to the store and buy more stuff.
I know. Yeah, you have. I shouldn't say. Well, no, I'm not gonna say what you have, because I don't want it to be gone when I get back. Yeah.
All right. So
All right.
I'm not sure we know what we're doing next week, but
I think we're doing a obscure rock thing.
masterpieces.
Right? Masterpieces?
Yeah.
Are we just calling it masterpieces?
We're calling it obscure rock masterpieces.
Oh, obscure rock masterpieces. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll have to do some digging, and I think I might have to bring up some stuff we talked about already, but I think that's okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in.
So,
Check out. Oh, wait. First of all, I gotta say, subscribe to our channel. I'm looking at. You don't think I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to you. Subscribe to our channel. All right. I think they get the message. And then, yeah, as we already said, Kenn's got some Coryell in stock, and he is located on
402 East Main Street, Watertown. Open on Friday and Saturdays. We just bought 1,000 records last weekend.
Ken called me up. We talked about something else, and he calls me 15 minutes later. He's like, Garrett, I bought 1,000 records.
Yeah, you can't even walk in there, man. There's stuff everywhere. So if you want to do some serious digging, we got the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and show up. Just show up early in the day. If you're worried about crowds, you know, it's
Wear a
usually
mask.
pretty. Yeah, wear a mask.
We
Do
do
it.
all the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, everyone, stay safe and healthy, and try not to stress too much. This is kind of a stressful point in history, but the weather's beautiful and the music is beautiful. So
And it's gonna
find
be
a way to
all
enjoy
right.
yourself. Yeah.
Everything's going to be all right.
All right. On that note,
All right.
thanks for tuning in. Bye, everybody.
See ya.